Hi and welcome to WPTuts. In this week's video we're going to be checking out how we can build pages using the free plugin, the free alternative to Visual Composer, and that's Elementor. Now I took a brief overview look at this in the previous video and I'll link that in the description below and also up in the corner of this video so you can check that out. But in this video I'm going to take you step by step through how we can use this with the theme that we've already installed and how it actually interacts with that and how we can create our first page using this free plugin. So let's check all that out right now. So let's start this first part of the video off by checking out the page, the way it looks at the moment with the theme that we've got installed. So if I switch over to my demonstration page, you can see we've got two main areas. We've got the section at the top which has our navigation and our logo. We then have the footer area, which is pretty simple at the moment, it just contains a copyright piece of information. And then we've got this blank area, which is effectively the page content or what we're going to influence or use Elementor to actually create and style and build all the building blocks up. So if we switch back over to the admin section, you can see what we've got at the moment is your typical installation of WordPress. We've got the normal WordPress editor is currently disabled because we're sat here waiting to start to invoke the editor, which is Elementor. You can see we've got some information on the right hand side that we expect, and we've got some page attributes and some information in there that is specific to the theme that we're currently using. So if we switch on the Elementor editor, just by clicking that, that will open up the full screen editor and allow us to effectively develop our page while looking at all the main elements that make up the page as part of the theme. So you can see we now have the section at the top, which is our navigation block on the right hand side, logo and footer at the bottom. We now have the main area section where we can start building the pages. Now I'm not going to go over in too much detail how this all works because that was covered in the first video, and like I say, I would recommend checking that out if you're new to Elementor or Visual Composer or any of those kind of sort of on-screen editing pieces of software. But as you can see down the left hand side, we've got a range of different predefined options that we can call up and use. We can also go through and we can switch over and look at some of the settings that we have available to us, which are part of the Elementor plugin. And as you can see in this specific version, we've got a couple of features which are coming soon, which in this instance is page settings and revision history. And depending upon when you're watching this video, you may find those options become available. And in future videos, we'll take a look at those as and when they do become available and show what options are available in there. But as you can see, we can control things like color, font, the Elementor settings, which will switch us back into the admin and take us over to the settings section. Or we can switch back over to all the modules that we can use, or the widgets we can use to create our pages. And we've also got a series of widgets at the bottom, which are WordPress native widgets, which we can also use in conjunction with the Elementor widgets. So if we look at the main area, you can see we've got a section at the top. We've also got the ability to add a new section, and we can drag or drop our widgets in there. So let's start by building up the basic elements, and then we'll start to flesh those out. So let's choose the first thing we're going to put in there, which we'll set this to be an image. So we'll just drag that over, drop it into this building block, and you can see we can now choose our image. And if we look down the left hand side, we've got the options become available to us with content, style, and advanced. And we can choose the alignment of the image, captions, and so on. I'm not going to worry about that at the moment. We'll come back and edit that in a moment. But let's go and put the next section in there now. And we're going to put a call to action below this. So let's just say add a new section. We now have the option to choose how many columns and the effective structure that we want our page to take up. So for this example, I'm going to use one column. And you can see that now puts the new column in there and allows me to drop in another element. So we can easily just go back and choose what element we want to place in there. So we can click on plus. We can now drop in information in there, so we'll put in a heading. So we just drag that over and drop it on there, and you can see now we have a whole range of different options available to us on the left-hand side. So this is context sensitive. So as we choose different elements and add different widgets and building blocks to our design, we will find that these context sensitive elements on the left-hand side will change based upon what element or widget we're working with. So again, we'll come back in and take a look at some of those settings for the specific elements after we've put the basic structure for our site in place. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add another section again, but this time we're going to break this down now into 3 building blocks. So we're going to have 3 columns, and as you can see at the moment it tells us we've got 33%, so these are split up into 3 equal columns. If we want to, we can easily come over to the corner, the right hand corner of any of these, and we can drag that over and make them larger or smaller, and the surrounding elements will move to compensate for those different changes in size that we apply to it. You'll also notice that we've got column and section options available on each one of these building block elements, and we can click and you can see we can clone, we can add, or we can remove it, and we can do the same with the section. So you can see we have section, we can clone that or remove that. So we can quickly build up the new way of laying things out quite quickly and easily without having to do repetitive tasks of doing the same thing over and over again. You'll also notice that when we've got these 3 columns, we've now got a lot more information available to us on the left hand side. We can go through and we can choose a range of predefined structures. So if we didn't want to have it broken up into 3 equal sections, we can have it broken up into 3 different sections. And you can see we've got 5 different options available to us on there, which will automatically allow us to choose exactly how these look. So you can see we can quickly and easily choose any of those settings, and this will automatically update to show exactly what they're going to look like. So very quick and very easy. So next up, we'll add another section in. So we'll say, let's add a new section. We'll set this to a single column, add a new element to that, new widget. And what we're going to do is we're going to add in a divider. We'll drop that in there. And finally, we'd add our last section, and we'll set this to be a 50-50 section. And everything's good to go on there. Now, so we've got our basic layout already created. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit save. So that'll allow me to make sure that I save all the things that I've done right now, and then I can start building up and fleshing out these elements. So let's just save that. That tells us now it's been saved. As you can see, it is a very, very quick plugin. If you're used to working with Visual Composer, which I use a lot, this is considerably quicker, and it's one of the selling points that they're definitely pushing, is the speed in which this plugin actually operates. And hopefully what you can see is that it is very fast. Okay, so let's come back up. Let's go in and choose our image now to start off with. So let's click on there. That automatically loads back in all the settings for that particular widget. We can now click to choose the image we want, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly upload a file into our media library and start using that to build our image at the top. Okay, so let's just drag and drop that in so we can upload that. We'll add a caption, so it's good for SEO. Let's just put in the lake. Insert our media, and there we go. There's our media placed in there. And as you can see, we can go through and choose some other options, so we can specify how we want to align this image, which in this example isn't going to play a lot of it's not going to be much difference to what we're doing, but we can do that if we want to. Do we want to make this a link to something? So we can choose from nothing, a media file, or a custom URL. So that's quite useful if you want to draw attention to an image and then send someone off to another page. You can see we can also jump over and choose the style, so we can reduce the size of the image if we want to. And again, you can see how fast it is to work with this. We can also adjust the opacity of the image, so if we wanted to, we could quite easily set this to be like a watermark. We can choose hover animations, what happens when you take your mouse over it. So we can say, let's go to shrink. As you can see, take your mouse over and it'll show us exactly what that'll look like on screen. If we want to, we can pulse. So there's a range of different animations we can use in there, quite a lot of different things we can do. So you can add a certain level of interactivity and sort of movement on your page. We can set a caption on there. We can set the alignment of that caption, the text color, the typography is being used, and as you can see, we can choose from default or custom. If we choose custom, that's going to open up a range of different options for us, which we can really go in and fine tune exactly what that's going to look like. So if we come back to image, you can see we can go to advanced and we can adjust and play margins around that, padding and so on. So let's just say, for example, that I wanted to push the heading section down. Then what we could do is we could come down to the margin and we could apply a bottom margin to that. So we'll unlink those so each one becomes independent. And as you can see, we can choose based upon pixel value or percentage values. So this is great if you want to work with responsive elements. So you don't want to limit it to being a specific pixel value, because that might look a bit odd on smaller or larger screens. So if you wanted to, you could use a percentage value, entirely up to you how you want to work. But let's just say for this example, we're going to put a 50 pixel margin at the bottom. You can see that automatically shows us exactly what it's going to look like, and it increases the margin area through this serrated box that shows us around the element that we're working with. So that's great. We've now pushed that down a little bit so it's not overlapping onto that. Again, we can apply another type of animation. So we can say if we want an entrance animation, so when this comes on screen, what happens? There we go. We can have it to fade in if we wanted to. We can adjust the animation duration. So we can say we want to do it slowly. you have a whole range of different things you can do with it. CSS classes, which is great if you want to target a specific element on your page and apply custom CSS on top of the default CSS, or override the default CSS that is part of Elementor and or the theme that you're using. You can see we've got background and border, so if we want to apply a border to this, we can do that. So you can see we've got a range of different options. If we choose solid, for example, you can see it automatically applies a border on there. We can choose a color for that. We can say on a pale gray. We can choose the width of it, so we can say we want it to have 10 pixels, for example. And you can see we can link or unlink that. We can change the color, the border radius. Yeah, there's a whole range of things. We want to put a shadow on there. Yeah, let's put a shadow on there. Now we have a shadow going around it. Do we want to control that shadow? Whole range of different things we can do. We've also got the option for responsive, and you can see how is this specific element going to interact with a desktop, tablet, or mobile device. So we could say that we didn't want this to show up, so you could easily put switching images in there or switching elements. So you could say this big version is going to be shown on a desktop, but then you go to a mobile device, you might want to put a smaller image in there that isn't so large file size wise and dimension wise, so it makes sure that anyone that's using a mobile device is not going to download huge files. So again, great way of being able to set up some logic based upon what device is being used and targeted. Anyway, we'll leave it at that because that looks good for me. I'm quite happy with the way that looks, and let's move on to the heading element. Okay, so let's choose the heading element, and once we do that, we'll see we now have different options available to us. So let's put something different in here, something that's a bit more relevant. And now once we've done that, we can now do some other things to that. So we can go in and we can set that to be a link if we want to go somewhere. We can choose the size. You can see we've got small, medium, right the way through to XXL. We can choose what HTML tag is being used for this, so we can specify exactly what one's going to be used. And this obviously will then interact with the styling that's been set up as part of your theme. So let's just say we're going to set that to heading 1. We want the alignment to be centered. We don't want it to link to anything, so we're quite happy the way it is. We can jump over to style then, and we can choose the different typography is going to be using this. Let's just say we want to set a custom value in there. We want to increase the size of that up quite nicely. Choose a different font family. So let's just say we wanted to work with something on Google Fonts. So you can see I'm going to choose Railway as my option. We can then choose the weight we want. So I'm going to say, let's go for normal. Transform. You can see we could push that to be uppercase, lowercase, capitalized, or leave it as default. We can also adjust the style on there, so you can see we've got default, normal, italic, and oblique. So we can say, well, we want it to be italic, for example, or normal, oblique, whatever you kind of want. We can adjust the line height, so we can manually control the amount of space that's been around it. We can adjust the spacing on the letters to give more or less spacing, so we can adjust all that. We can really get in and fine-tune how this looks. Again, when it comes to the size, you can see we've got the option for pixels, ems or rems, so we can really get in and fine-tune what what method of measurement is being used on there. And if we jump over to advanced, you can see again we've got the option for margins and padding, so pretty much every element or every widget you've got allows you to fine-tune the padding or margins on an element by element basis. Again, we can apply animation, so we can say, well, when this comes in, it's going to fade in. We can choose any kind of background or border. We can adjust the responsiveness of it. So you've got a lot of control over things on there. So we'll leave that as it is. I kind of like the way that looks. That's fine for me. And let's move on to the next section. Now we can start working with these 3-column layouts and start controlling what information is in there and how they're laid out. So far we've covered a single element in each one of these building blocks that we've created. Now with these 3 columns, we're going to do something a little different. We're going to use a couple of different elements just to show you that you're not restricted to one widget per block. So let's just go to this first section, and what we're going to do in there is we're going to put an image in to start off with. So we'll drag that over. We're also then going to go and put another element in there. And to do that, it's simple. All we need to do is come back up onto this little section in the top where it shows us 9 little building blocks. Click on that, and that'll take us back to the widget selector. And now all I need to do is drag the next element down. So let's drag that down, drop it on there, and we now have the heading section. We'll do the same again. We'll come back to this, and we'll just come in and we'll choose text editor, and we'll drop that below. So we've now built up 3 individual elements which we can now control the exact look and style of. And then if we want to, we can copy those over to the next section and use those as templates. So let's do that. Before we start populating this with any information, let's just duplicate each of these and put them into the second and third columns. So I click to clone. We can then drag that over, drop it on the next column. Do the same again. We can clone that, drag that over, drop it on the next column, and finally do the same for the text at the bottom. And we'll do that one more time now, just for the third column. So we'll clone it, move it, clone it, move it, clone it, and move it. So there we go. We now have 3 columns all set up with their building block elements, and we can now just flesh those out to put exactly what we want in there. So let's click on our first image, and what we need to do now is exactly like we did with the main image. We'll just select, upload the image, or select it from our media library, and then we're good to go. So I'm going to go and do that. Okay, so let's upload our image, and let's just go and choose the images you want to use once we've uploaded them. So I'm going to start off with this mountain. So I'm just going to set our alt text for that, insert the media, and there's our first one. Click on the second one, do the same again, and we'll just go for the C one. And finally we do the same for the third one, and we'll just upload our image, choose that, and we've got mountains again. Okay, so there's our images, and as you can see, very quick and easy to set those. We're going to control the alignment, so we're going to specify that this is set to be centered. You can see if we want to, we could easily add a caption in there, so let's just put, this is a caption. So you can see we can quickly and easily add captions to our images in there. We can specify links, like I said earlier on, so we could have this link into the relevant page if we wanted to. We'll take the caption out of there. And there's the basics of that. So I'm quite happy with the beginning on there. But what we're going to do is we're going to jump over to the option for our borders. And we're going to set a border style to be solid. We're going to set our width to our border style to be, let's go for something like 5 pixels. We'll set that to be a light grey like we did with the main image. And we'll also set on there that we want to have a shadow. So we're basically replicating the main image in style, so we've got that consistency throughout. And you can see again, it's very quick and easy. If I wanted to, I could have easily just done all of the style settings, then applied it to each of the other ones, which would have obviously made things a little quicker. But hopefully what you can see is it's still very quick to do this anyway. So I'm going to quickly pause the video, and I'm going to go through and set these to look exactly the same as the first one, using exactly the same methods. Okay, and there we go. We've now set all those to look the same. So the next thing we can do is we're going to come in and change these headings to make sure that they're all styled the way that we want them to be. So we can click, I'm going to change that. Heading 2 is fine, but I want to center that. And what I want to do, actually let's set that to heading 3. I don't want to be that prominent. And we'll come out to styling, come to typography and choose custom. And what we'll do there is like we did last time, we'll come in, we were using railway. So we'll do the same again. We'll change the size of that, so let's set that a bit larger. And what we'll do with this is we'll come to transform, and we'll say we want to capitalize, so that'll capitalize the first letter of each of the words. Yeah, that's looking good. And we'll come to the weight, and we'll just set that to be a little thinner. There we go, we'll set that to weight 300. And finally we'll come down to the text at the bottom, and we'll click on that, and we'll change that to the text that I want to place in there. Oops, wrong one. There we go, a little bit of Lorem Ipsum text. Let's just bring that down ever so slightly. Let's look at our page. Yeah, that's all looking good. I'm quite happy with that. And as you can see, if we wanted to, we could style the text, and we can add images in there like we normally can with the normal editor that we've got with WordPress itself. So I'm just going to quickly run through again and do the same as I just did now. I'm going to create or edit these to make sure they all fall in line with the same styling. So I'm going to pause the video and do the same again. So there we go. There's our 3 elements all set up in 3 columns. Images applied, everything looking nice and neat and tidy. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you quickly that I can come back into this because we've adjusted the size of the spacing and the line height and everything on our heading. We don't need the actual extra margin space on this, so I can quickly and easily come back up, switch over to advanced, and set all this back down to 0. There we go. So we've now tweak that very quickly and easily. We'll come to the line we've got available on there, and let's adjust that. You can see we can come in and choose a different type. We can choose solid, double, dotted, or dashed. So let's go for dotted. And what we're going to do is we're going to set that to be, again, a pale grey. So it's quite subtle, but it's there. You can see we can align it. We can adjust the width. So we don't want that to be full width. We could say we want that to be about 60%. We can do that. Then we can align it to the center, just to make sure everything is all lined up nice and neat and tidy. So there we go, that's that done. And we're now ready to move on to the final two columns and just check how this looks on screen in our page. Okay, so the last two columns we're going to create now is we're going to create a nice slideshow, and then we're going to create a block of text that sits next to that describes what the images that the person is seeing as they go through that slideshow is actually showing them. So let's see how we do that. You can see we've got a whole range of different image options available in the widget section, and the one we're looking for is the image carousel. Now we could use a gallery if we wanted to, but I want a certain level of interactivity with this where the user can scroll through the images and see a nice sized image. So let's just drag and drop that over the first column. And before we do anything else, let's just go to the second column and let's just drop our text editor in there. So we've now got the two building block elements that we want. So if we come back to the first element, you can see we've got a range of different options available in the editing section on the left hand side. And the first thing I'm going to do is add the images in. So let's click and we'll just choose the same three images. It doesn't really matter for this example. And we'll create our gallery. If we want to add a caption, we can do that right now. We can reverse the order of those. We're going to say insert gallery. Now you can see by default it's put the three images side by side. We don't want to do that. We want to control this in a slightly different way. So we've got the option that says slides to show, and we're going to click on that and we're going to say 1. As you can see now, that shows just the one image, but it's also just showing us a little thumbnail. So if I come to the image size, you can see we've got a range of different options we can choose from. If we want to get customized, we can do that. But for this example, I'm going to say, let's go medium large. And as you can see, it's going to resize it and make it fit inside the area that we have available to us. You can see we can choose to stretch the image, what type of navigation we want, and what clicking on any of the images actually does. So you can see we could say, well, we want the media file. If we did that, if you click on that, you'd then see the larger version of it. But I don't want that. I want to just make sure that this just allows them to scroll through those images. Let's also take a look at the options we have available. You can see we've got arrows and dots. So this is the arrows on the left-hand, right-hand sides that allow us to go through. We've got the dots at the bottom that if we've had, say, 10 images on there, the end user could easily interact with those dots and jump to any image in that section. So let's just say, I just want to keep this simple. I just want arrows. So we can just go through one at a time. If we look at the additional options, you can see what happens. So does it pause when you hover the mouse over it? So we can set that to yes or no. Is it set to autoplay? So it'll automatically scroll through those. So if someone doesn't know it's scrollable, they can see that this is going to do it automatically for them. Again, yes or no. The auto speed play, how quick it is to show any image before it transitions to the next one. Is it an infinite loop? In other words, does it go round and round and round, or does it go back to the beginning and start again? The effect that we've got, you can see we've got slide or fade, so we can choose how these actually transition between each other. And you can also set the animation speed, how quick it is, the duration, and which direction they go in. We can also come into the style section. As you can see, we can apply borders to the images and so on. Or we can go to the advanced tab, and you can see we've got much the same information as we had in most of the other elements we have on here. So if we wanted to apply a background border and make it look the same as the other images, we could do that. So you can see we can easily apply a solid border. We could say we want it to be 5 pixels. We can say we want it to be a light gray. We can come down, do we want to put a shadow on there? Yes, we can do that. And again, the same with the responsive elements, the blur and so on. So that's how easy it is to create a slideshow. And finally, all we're going to do is we're going to come in and we're going to put some more text in this section so we can see exactly what we're talking about. So we'll just use our ever faithful lorem ipsum text, and we'll just put a paragraph in there so it splits things up a little bit better and fills the information out. And if we want to, we can come to the top and we can easily just put in a title. Style that to be bold. So very, very quick and easy. If we want to, we can set that to be one of the heading sizes. However, if we want more control over it, then we can use a heading element like we've done with these other columns. But you can edit and set this up exactly how you'd like it. We're going to hit save just to make sure that all the changes you've done are now saved. And what we're going to do to finish this up is we're going to take a look at what this now looks like on the page. So we've got our blank page, which we looked at earlier. Now let's take a look at what this looks like. So we've now switched over to WordPress itself, and we're looking at the front end of our website. And as you can see, it now has all the elements we just created sitting inside the theme that we've just been using. So you can see all the elements we just created are all there, all the styling we've applied. If we'd applied any animation, that's available. You can see our slideshow is available to us, which we can easily click and go through as much as we want. All those elements are in place. Now, if you're wondering about the edit, that's just because we're logged in as an admin. We wouldn't see that normally, but everything else is there. So if we wanted to come back in and fine tune anything, we could just jump back in and start tweaking this to make sure that all of the elements are spaced and laid out exactly as we like, or anything we don't like, we can quickly change it. If you did find this video useful, don't forget to hit that subscribe button below to be kept up to date with all of the new content we add every single week. If you've got any comments, questions, or feedback on this video or anything else we've covered on the channel, pop those in the comment section below. And until next time, take care.